My reaction, I was quite shocked about it. I thought, very unprofessional, but, it shouldn't have happened in the first place.
Well, when I first heard about it, I thought, what? I swore when I heard about it. And I couldn't believe it.
This part of the story takes us to Outback, South Australia, the tiny opal mining settlement of Minterby in the APY lands. It's 1978. An Aboriginal man has been found dead in mysterious circumstances. We don't know his name or the cause of his death. The state coroner and SA police send a team to investigate. When they arrive in the town, they are offered the use of a cool room in the only hotel for hundreds of kilometres in which to conduct the autopsy. But the pathologist declines the offer. Instead, he decides to take the opportunity to set up a makeshift public morgue. His plan is to demonstrate his mortuary skills before the entire community. Miners, Aboriginal people, women, and perhaps even children congregate around in stunned disbelief. He then goes to work on the body of the deceased. Someone's father, someone's brother, someone's son.
My sort of response to that, and what I can see, is that he gutted this bloke on the table in public. He gutted him, took out his insides.
That's what happens in autopsies. The skull is cut open, the brain removed, as are the organs of the body. The bystanders, especially the Aboriginal people, must have been horrified at this indignity, this desecration of the poor man in public.
I mean, if the families know about this, we're unsure about it, but if they did, they would be shocked.
So how do we know this happened? Well, it was part of a sworn affidavit by a former police officer who witnessed this outrage. It was lodged in the Supreme Court last week as part of an application to appeal by Aboriginal man Derek Bromley, who spent the last 31 years in jail for a crime he says he didn't commit. But it gets even more disturbing. The affidavit goes on to say the pathologist dipped a metal ladle into the bodily fluids and blood within the trunk of the body, held the ladle in front of him at arm's length, facing the gathered group, and made inappropriate remarks. One can only shudder to think what they might have been.
A big joke, It was his day. It was his 15 seconds of fame.
How could you possibly say that was acceptable conduct?
You can't. It's not acceptable at all, whether it's done to a black fella or a white fella.
And who was the pathologist who conducted himself in such a manner? It was the state's chief forensic pathologist, Dr. Colin Manock, the man who was described by his employers in court on oath as not having the qualifications to do his job.
He was unable to do certifying of the cause of death because of his lack in histopathology. We had a man who had no specialist qualifications doing a specialist job.
It was said by the head of their Forensic Science Institute in South Australia, on behalf of the Institute and presumably on behalf of the Government of South Australia.
That was in the same year as the Minterby autopsy. So what are our authorities doing? Where's their voice in all this?
Yeah.
They must have known, surely.
They would have known. They knew that he was unqualified. The Crown knew it.
But they also would have known about this autopsy.
That's right. They sent him up there to do it,
And yet we've heard nothing.
No.
Mulla Sumner and Torto Sansbury are elders of the Indigenous community in Adelaide. They have strict rules about the treatment of the dead, but this offends everyone's sense of decency.
Total respect, whether you're black or white. Total respect for the dead. You don't desecrate The body, it's all total respect. So where is this bloke coming from? So where's he coming from? What gives him the right to do this?
There wasn't or hadn't seemed to be any complaints laid from any other authorities that were there at the time when this autopsy was being performed out in the open.
This is not the only example of Dr. Manock's failure to deal professionally with Aboriginal people. He found 15-year-old Gerald Warren had died of misadventure by falling from a moving vehicle, when in fact he'd been brutally murdered.
The young bloke he was belted with a water pipe, and he had the thread marks on his body, and Manock put it down, those thread marks down, as the corduroy jeans he was wearing.
Can you believe that?
Can you believe that?
Well, it's really more devastating than anything else we've come across so far.
Dr. Bob Moles is an international authority on what it is to be and what is required of expert witnesses.
It's a mockery of an autopsy. It's a public performance masquerading as an autopsy, but it couldn't possibly be regarded as a form of scientific procedure.
Even more disturbing is that our authorities seem to have protected Dr. Manock whenever there's been public criticism. Officially, he's got off scot-free.
Absolutely. Yes, every official that's been required to make an official determination about his conduct has always given him a clean bill of health, and that's plainly wrong.
Dr. Manock gave expert evidence in around 400 trials, but now the details of what went on in Minturby can no longer remain untold.
I want to see a royal commission into this to bring it out and expose them all.
And this Royal Commission should not just follow on from the person that was where the autopsy was in Minturby, but other autopsies that Manock has performed on other Aboriginal people.
But there is another aspect of Dr. Manock's life that is truly bizarre and begs the question, who is this man?
Oh my goddess. Where do you see my medical suit?
The same Gabrielle that runs the Fetish Palace, the same Gabrielle that's married to Dr. Colin Manock.